Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you by Prop Swap, where America buys and sells sports bets. Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast is here on this happy hour Friday afternoon. I'm Mike Gill. We are live at the Slam Dunk Bar 1 at Resorts Atlantic City. Got a nice little crowd coming in throughout the day. Got the games on here this weekend. You can check out all the Final Four. It all starts tomorrow. Coverage at 4:30 on 97.3 ESPN. Villanova, Kansas, UNC, Duke is your Final Four, and we'll have the national championship game for you on Monday night. We're looking at some football. It's been a wild week of football, and we're going to kind of wrap it all up now. Adam Caplan, you were at the owners' meeting. Looks like you are back in your friendly confines there.
Yeah, I'm back in my TV studio, my radio studio. So, yeah, I'm back. And, Mike, I have to tell you, I've covered this team. So I think year 20, 2002, I think, is probably when I started. I have to think about that in terms of this team. We're covering the league now since 2000, but this particular team on a full-time basis since, I'm going to say, 2002. I've been, I don't know how many Jeffrey Lurie press conferences. Just to give the fans an idea, sometimes you just don't know what you're going to get. It's typical of most owners, but because Jeffrey's a very thoughtful person, sometimes he wants the fans to speak to the fans through us, the media. Sometimes he gets defensive. That's just part of the one that we just had. Sometimes he's honest. This is part of the one that we just had. Sometimes he just don't want to say anything. That was not really the case this time. But I have to tell you, this is one of the most engaging ones I could remember. Now, we could certainly get into some of the things he said, which, a lot of us rolled our eyes at, particularly people who were there, like myself, Tim McManus, Jimmy Kempsky, and all the writers that cover the Eagles. So I'm more of a national guy. I still keep an eye, obviously, closely because of our show, Jeff Mosher and I on Inside the Birds, of what happens with the team. And this one was really interesting. I didn't know, I really had no idea what to expect. And I wish we even had more time because I had two or three things I wanted to ask him, but I because I'm more of a national guy, I wanted to be fair and not hog up all the local guys' time. And they asked some great questions, got some great responses. Some had this been an off-the-record conversation, I probably would have had something to say to Jeffrey, but I decided to not say anything. But it was really wide-ranging, interesting, and the funny thing is, Moshe and I, since we started the show 5 years ago, we covered a lot of this stuff before in our own reporting as well as others who've reported on this. And it's really fascinating. Again, I didn't know that we were going this direction. That was what's so great about it, sitting there. Mike, I'm shaking my head inside of I cannot believe he said that kind of thing. It was fun.
All right, so let's go through and kind of rehash some of it because I think it's definitely worth kind of looking back over now that the dust is settled. He has said, now there has been reports that he has been more involved. A meddling owner has been used, the term. He said he's actually less involved, not more involved in the roster decisions.
We've reported on this stuff, the JJ Arcega-Whiteside situation. We'll get into that later if you like. Because we had our own reporting about this. We were actually questioned by Eagles about this like 3 years ago. So someone questioned us, but we know we got it right. And the owner basically confirmed what we had heard, but not quite the way that he did. There were some missing pieces he confirmed. I'm glad that he didn't. I'm glad that he actually he told the truth as he saw it. And I did appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is he's always been involved. I would say in our reporting on this, and this is going back to me personally, I guess 9 years, ever since Banner left, Jeffrey Lurie, according to multiple team sources, took way more involvement in all assets of football operations. Now he doesn't generally tell anyone what to do, but he does, as others have reported and spoken about, and including us, he questions stuff. He wants to make sure the processes are good, and there's nothing wrong with that. Jeff's a smart guy, but it's when he goes over his I would say expertise is what coaches and executives have had problems with going back several years. And the one that I found fascinating was the one that I just spoke about, Arcega-Whiteside. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that they had asked him, as Jeff Lurie said, they asked him, about the tie between J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Paris Campbell. We had reported, like right after the draft, it was either Arcega-Whiteside and Campbell. The owner, we had reported at the time 3 years ago that within a couple of weeks we got the information. We said, hey, what we heard is that the owner liked J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He met an analytical standard in terms of catch radius, size, certain things that he liked. But we didn't know whether they went to him to break the tie or not. It's up to debate. I mean, that's what I guess kind of he gave his opinion. But even if he didn't, Mike, think that he impacted the decision, he sure did. Because if you own the business and you said to me, what do you think? Or let's say you're the owner and I say to you, Mike, what do you think? Although it's going to be my call. If you say something that's the opposite of what I'm thinking, I may change my mind because I don't want you to hold it against me.
Right, it's one of those things. It's almost like, Adam, when someone says, hey, I'm having a party, but don't bring a gift.
Oh, right, like on Seinfeld, right.
Right, don't bring a gift. It's like, my opinion is this, but you do what you want to do.
Right. Well, the problem is when you do it like that, you feel guilty, and there's no way to know the real answer on this because we can't go back 3 years. We weren't in the room, but multiple sources told us. Actually, multiple. Geez, 3 people that Jeff and I, Moshe talked to, confirmed what we had heard. That basically, that the owner, whether he did or not, impacted that decision.
Well, the oddity here is that he admitted that there was players that I was in on Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Russell Wilson. Those are guys that I did like. But when it comes to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, that was the other guy. I let him make that decision. It was almost like he wanted to kind of say, well, I was involved on the good ones. Well, if you're going to be involved on those guys, then maybe you should be involved more often.
Yeah, I know people found it disingenuous. I saw it a little differently. He just had to use 3 examples at the top of his head. Now, if he had that prepared, if he wrote it on a piece of paper, geez, I'm going to only use these names because they've been home runs, it's a different story. But yeah, see, there's no way because think of it. I'd have to go back in my mind. What other players do I know he had involvement with, other than Arcega-Whiteside? I know. Listen, I could tell you 7 people who were in the room when Russell Wilson was drafted. Yes, there was one dissenter. I'm not going to get into who that person was. The guy obviously is no longer with the team. There was one person in their personnel department who did not go along with the Wilson pick. Put multiple people in the room. But the owner definitely liked Russell Wilson. He definitely wanted him. That turned out to be a mistake. Now, what I don't know, here's a question for you. I don't know who made a decision because the GM wanted to trade up for him and he was told not to do it. He was told that he would be there later, and obviously that was a mistake. But look, Jeffrey could use whatever semantics he wants to use. That's he knows better than we all do. I'm not calling him names like some other people have called him. But to think like he's less involved, I mean, we're not getting an off-the-record conversation with him. I would love to go at him a little bit with 4 or 5 things that I've known about over the last 8 or 9 years. Would not agree with what he was saying. But we're also not saying he's forcing anything on them. I've never said that. Moshe's never said that in our reporting. I just think that when you come up and say, oh, I'm less involved, if anything, well, that's just not right. He's an owner who wants to be involved. I have no problem with it. But you cannot influence draft picks. Period. End of story. He's not qualified to do that. That's my issue with it.
I don't know how much this pertains, but I just popped in my head because you're saying the owner being involved. How much is the son involved? Is that something that is he getting more involved? Is that something that is being more noticed? Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that he's trying to learn the business. Jeffrey, I know Jeffrey Lurie was asked about this in a variety of ways in the Tuesday night press conference, whether he's going to get the team or not. And he's like, look, if he wants to, okay. But Jeffrey said that he sent his son to development part of the National Football League to learn the business. Yeah, it's widely believed that he's going to take over the team when the father is done. Mm-hmm. But I don't. From what I understand, he's not anywhere close to being done. And he'd love to win another Super Bowl. By the way, he's driven to get a franchise quarterback. I can tell you that he wants one. He wants to see if Jalen Hurts could be that guy. But what I would tell you is, no one drafted when they drafted Hurts. There was never any thought he would even be considered to be the franchise quarterback. He was drafted to be a backup. People forget about that. Remember, 9 months after they drafted Carson Wentz, they drafted Jalen Hurts.
Adam Caplan, InsideTheBirds.com. The Inside the Birds podcast, you guys can always check that out wherever you get your podcasts. He did admit that he gets involved with assistant coach decisions, and I guess this is I don't want to say a huge revelation, but it did lead to almost the end of Doug Peterson.
Well, listen, I was surprised that he admitted it. We didn't know what was coming. The local media did a phenomenal job of grilling him. Because first of all, I know some people were taken aback by it. Remember, the last time they had access to him was through Zoom when Jeffrey was in his compound in Florida in January of 2021 after he fired Peterson. So, look, they had a lot of questions. They were all, by the way, they're all fair. I didn't find anything that wasn't fair. And I thought that his response was actually fairly honest. He says, who's going to develop the quarterback best? He didn't like maybe some of the things that happened. I don't know. Here's the problem that we all have. We don't have any idea how he gets his information. Is he sitting in meetings? Does he know who coaches the best, who doesn't coach the best? Did he like was Wentz in a regression? Absolutely. We all know that. But to think like he's qualified to fire some of Doug's assistants. Now, here's what we reported on Inside the Birds 3 or 4 years ago. Peterson had a major problem coaching his coaches. We actually said this, our first show in spring of 18, one of our first scoops was what we were hearing is that Peterson had a very hard problem coaching his coaches. He mostly hands off, whereas Andy Reid was not like that, by the way. And Doug,
by the way, just to interject, Adam, I do recall you saying that on Football at 4 numerous times, that one of your problems with Doug was that he doesn't coach his coaches hard enough.
And because here's the problem, like with that, in any business that you have to know your coaches. Well, like, if you and I own a business, we would be responsible for employees. We don't want to micromanage them, but we want to know what they're capable of doing and not capable of doing, and the things that they have to do better with to help our business. If they don't do a good enough job on it, we're probably going to have to replace them. That's just, and by the way, it's not easy. I get it. Sometimes you have to fire people you're close to. Doug would not coach his coaches hard enough, and he had real problems getting rid of coaches. And here's the thing. Some of the coaches that were let go were really talented. Doug just had to let them know there's a better way. And, the other problem is Doug did not get close enough to Wentz. That was a problem for him. He handed off to other people. And for the most part, when he had John DeFilippo coached the hell out of Wentz, so he didn't have to do it. But when DeFilippo left to go to the Vikings and Frank Reich left to go to the Colts, he coached a guy he didn't really know very well. And obviously, Wentz was in a regression.
Let me just ask you, it's not, to me anyway, it's not far-fetched that the owner is in on that. I mean, he owns the team. I want to know who's going to be working for my team. Is that the norm throughout the league? Because he's admitting something that doesn't seem like is ridiculous.
No, it's not the norm. Do some of them do that? Yes. Yes. I know of a team in the AFC in particular where the owner gets involved with evaluating the assistants, which is sometimes I think very unfair. Because if you're not a football person and you're not in meetings to see, it's one thing. Jeffrey Lurie goes to every practice just about. I mean, goes to most practices. He's got to know the coaches personally. But it's a hard thing to do. Now, here's the question I would have. Did Lurie ever say to Doug privately, hey, listen, you got to do a better job here. We're not getting anything out of this. I'm letting you know now this is not acceptable. Now, if he did that and Peterson said, I hear you, and didn't do it, then you know what? I got no problem with it. But I do wonder, and I would have loved, again, to ask this question, how often did you sit down with Doug in the past? Now, obviously, it's a year. Peterson's not even the coach anymore, so it's irrelevant. But did you notice Lurie did talk about how, I forget the exact phrase, but he talked about how Sirianni coaches his coaches, whatever phrase he used. I thought that was interesting.
Adam, I know that one of the the great glories of the fan base is the Kelly Green jersey, and I feel like Lurie felt that he was like the matriarch being able to come out and say, we are bringing the Kelly Green jerseys back. Now, I, for one, who am 45 years old, I actually like the white helmet with the green wings.
Oh, I love that from the 70s, yeah.
Yes, I would have loved to have seen the white helmet over the Kelly. I'm not the biggest Kelly Greener, but I felt like he had great joy in delivering that message.
Yeah, I love that. That was funny how he did that. And you know what? I'm someone, Like I love the color rush jerseys from Nike. Even the mustard ones from the Jaguars, as ugly as they are, I think they're cool. And I love this thing. I love that they can wear the alternate black helmets this season, and they'll have the Kelly green jerseys and helmets in 23. I love it. I think it's great. I'm someone that's different when I wear clothing. When I play tennis, I wear like bright clothing. I've read Asics tennis sneakers. I like that, so I think it's cool. I'm not because I don't, I'm not I'm a reporter, so I have to stay impartial. I don't wear jerseys, though in the late 90s, before I became a reporter, Mike, I would wear to my fantasy football drafts. I would wear Chris Carter jerseys. I would wear jerseys. I will admit that. I love doing that. That was cool.
The Kelly green is next. So it's not till next year, though, right? He said it takes like 2 years to kind of develop.
Yeah, the rule. Yeah, I don't know why they need time for design. I've asked. It's funny you say this. I've asked the question. It's been many years. It wasn't about the Eagles. It was about generally, because I was at a press conference at the Super Bowl many years ago, and they were talking about. Actually, I think it was going from Reebok to Nike. Maybe it's 12 or 13 years ago. I don't remember. 10 years ago, and they were talking about the transfer in uniforms and how they have certain rules, Mike, in terms of how long you have to wait, and they changed them 2 years ago that you could start wearing 2 helmets this season. And in the NBA, they have like 4 or 5 different jerseys. The Sixers are crazy with them. I love it, man. I love this. In fact, there's a Sixers sweatshirt I want to get.
I do like the news. I like the Spectrum series. This is one of the uniforms. Yeah. I haven't. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, how about the scoreboard? The fake Spectrum scoreboard, the retro scoreboard.
I
love
it.
That.
No, they've hit a home run with the Spectrum series. I haven't liked a lot of their other. I hated the gray with the stars that Jimmy Butler when he was here. I hated those. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the boathouse ones. The red ones I don't like at all. I don't know that they're city, but like these Spectrum ones, they did a good job. I'm interested to see this Nike, the black helmet. Are they going to go black with black wings? Are they going to go midnight green wings? Are they going to go white wings? I think that's going to be interesting.
I would love to see black with a green wing. That would be incredible. I love the black jerseys. I don't know what the record is on it. I know years ago people said they had a losing record or something on it, but whatever the record is, I'm all for it.
Before we get to this draft, obviously you're going to hear a bunch of stuff. But one guy, Sauce Gardner, I think is maybe the best corner in the draft. Eagles meet with him. Any message there? Is that would have to be a trade up, right?
Yeah. So Mosher put on our show. We first reported this one. Was it our show that dropped Thursday morning, on YouTube and Pod, that Sauce Gardner from the University of Cincinnati. Boy, they've got a good group of players. The Gardner, by far the top quarterback for this draft, is going to visit on April the 10th. Yeah, my first thought when Jeff said this is that, well, just either in case he drops, he's not dropping until to where they're picking the first round. There's no way in hell. So yeah, look, the Eagles have got the most draft bounty in the first round. It would take not only, obviously swapping your first, but you're going to have to give up pretty significant compensation. He could go in the top 5, by the way, Mike. So yeah, I thought that was fascinating. I didn't expect that, but what I know is I used to be someone who charted these visits like crazy. 400 to 500 of them over not 400, like 200 to 300 over the league, because they're 30 per team, but they don't really mean a whole lot. But I'll tell you when they mean something. If 10 of your visits are corners, you're drafting a corner high. That's the thing that I noticed, and we'll track the Eagles. We'll have all of them, but it is fascinating that they're doing this.
All right, Adam Caplan, Football at 4. Don't forget to check out InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. A lot of stuff on the platform that you can check out almost daily, even throughout the offseason. Draft coming up, and Football at 4 every day right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great weekend, pal.
You too. Thank you.
All right, there's Adam Caplan from InsideTheBirds.com, another edition of Football at 4 in the books.